Okay, back on. Back on. Okay. Well, welcome to my project. You're looking at a 1985 Corvette, and we got a compressor that I believe is failing. This first started several months ago. It's starting to get cool weather, and I didn't pursue it any further. But initially, it quit cooling, and I got to looking, and I noticed I had a little bit of oil residue right here. So I pulled that off. Of course, it lost all the Freon, of course. I pulled that off, put the O-ring on there, put some 134a in it just to get it going. But once I got pressure on it, the compressor kicked on, and it just sounded like a thrashing machine, making all kinds of racket. So I don't know if it ran low on refrigerant for such a long time. If that took out the compressor, I'm not sure what caused it to fail. It sure is making a lot of racket. So what I've just done now, before I go unbolting everything, I wanted to confirm I do not have a leak. So you can see right here, I've pulled it down to 360 microns. This is kind of just a fancy gauge. It's very, very sensitive. The smallest leak it will detect. Of course, normally you got these kind of gauges. You pull it down to 30 and let it sit there, for a couple hours, see if it stays put. Of course, there's my little vacuum pump I got from Harbor Freight. It does a great job for me. This is not something I do all the time, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. My goal is to change the compressor, get this converted over to 134a. I was told I need to adjust this pressure switch to down to 21 psi, so it operates a little bit different because we're going from R-12 to 134a, and I will be changing the what's it called, the expansion tube down in here. I'll be changing that out, and of course I'm going to thoroughly check everything as I take this compressor out, make sure there's no metal in the system. Hopefully they're not, and then that way I won't have to deal with changing out the condenser. That would be no fun. Then I'm going to put in a new canister here, accumulator, I believe it's called. So anyway, you can follow along with me, and we'll get this figured out together. Okay, I'm doing a little experiment here with this adjustable pressure switch. You see there's a little screw right there. And evidently when we go from R12 to 134, we need to change the pressure. And I've hooked up shop air, which I know is not the proper thing to do. It should be nitrogen, but seeing I'm changing all these components anyway, I figure it'll be okay. So I'm gonna get it to come on first. Okay, so there's the factory setting. It's kicking off about 25 psi, so I'm going to give that screw about a turn or so and see what it does. Okay, alright, final test. I think I got it right. So I took my little small screwdriver, I went counterclockwise a little over a half a turn. So let's try that test. Let me get this pressurized back up. Until the switch engages. Okay, switch is on. Shut off my valve. Now bleed it off until about 22.5 is what I'm looking for. Here we go. 22.5. Okay, so I got that part done. Next part is pulling the compressor. Step one, what have I done so far? Take the line loose, unplug my connector, took a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, and pushed forward to relieve the spring tension on the belt. Got that done. Of course, now it's grabbing my ratchet. I got to get me a little pry bar in there to move it a little bit to get my ratchet back. Okay, I thought I'd tell you what sockets I'm using. What we got here? Used the 10 millimeter, and what is that one? That's 13 millimeter. Get these bolts loose here. Takes that bolt off, and I used the 8 millimeter to take these two screws out right here. Yeah, that loosens that bracket. unplug the vacuum line. There's a burger of a bolt there. I got to get behind this hose. So I'm just going to keep taking I got the factory repair manual, but it doesn't go in any details about how to remove this thing. So I'm just winging it. Okay, I'm starting to see why people hate this project. Because look, you see this bolt here, which would be the logical thing to remove, but you can't remove it because it's going to ram right into the valve cover. You know, this bolt, yeah, it comes right out, easy peasy. So that means you got to deal with this bracket. So I see down there, those two nuts there's got to come loose, and there's a burger of a bolt that's directly under this pulley. You can't see it or anything. I can feel it though, and I believe it's a number 45 Torx bit. And I believe there's a notch here. You got to get this lined up just right on the back side before you can get to that. So, alright, so I'll get me some more sockets, extensions, and we'll get started on that. Alright, making a little progress. So I've got me one large adjustable wrench in regular size to get these lines off the accumulator, because I'm going to get that accumulator out of the way and the lines out of the way to help me get that booger of a bolt that's down under here. So get that out of the way, get the lines out of here, and hopefully I'll do well getting that bolt loose. That's what I've heard on the internet. It's really a burger to deal with. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I got this bolt out. Boy, it's a burger. You only got one shot at doing this and doing it right, because it's a Torx. Make sure you get a very good. So I got like an impact version. It's a Torx 45. That's what I used on it. A very short extension, long handle ratchet. And you see it notched. See how it's notched? You have to line that up with one of these notches. You got 3 of them just rotated around there until it lines up. And just use good steady pressure. And oh, another tip is I took a grinder and ground a nice flat spot on the Torx bit so I could get in there and get a really good bite. Because if you strip that out, then that is not going to be a good day. That would be lots of fun. So it's getting loose now, and I just gotta see what else I gotta do to wiggle it out of there. All right, I'm getting very close. Now, so it was a burger. I probably spent close to an hour getting to this point. And the last part is getting this bolt loose here. You can see there it is. That very last step, what I do is take this wire cover loose, pull these wires back out of the way so I could get room to get that bolt out. So the way I did that is I got my little punch here and punched it through as I wiggled the bracket. So that pushed the bolt out. Now I don't know if it'll come out yet or not. Oh, it did. Woohoo! There it is. Alright, so it can be taken out in about an hour's time. I was reading on the form where some people actually had to take these fuel lines loose. But luckily I did not have to do that. But boy, look at that water line down there. It's probably a good time to replace that. That would be a nightmare to change, wouldn't it? Goodness. Alright. Well, compressor is out. And I'll go on to the next step, whatever that is. Okay, important note. I just noticed this. These bolts are different. You see, that one's a 15 millimeter. That one's a 14. Just so you know the location, the 15 millimeter goes in the rear. The 14 millimeter goes on the front. Just so you know when you're putting that back together. I don't know why that is, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. Oh, I see. That actually bolt's a little bit smaller diameter. I guess that helps give you a little bit of wiggle room to get that sucker out. Anyway. Keep a note of that. Don't mix them up. Well, I found something I did not want to see. To get to the orifice tube, there it is. It takes a 7/8 wrench. Loosen that up. Take a small pair of needle nose pliers. Carefully pull it up. So when I did pull it up, I seen some shiny metal. A little bit of debris. I don't know how bad that is. I'm going to have to, got a buddy of mine who does this for a living. I'll send him a picture of this. But quit shaking. I guess I need to eat something. There is a little metal there. So So I don't know how bad that is. So I'll talk to him tomorrow. And it looks like a flush is going to be involved, would be my guess. So the saga continues. Well, I guess it's flushing time. I got a little device over here, and I've just taken the lines loose, and luckily they came loose real easy. But you want to be careful, you know, hold this really tight as you break the other line loose. If it's super tight, giving you trouble, you might want to think twice about it before you break something. Because you see it's got these old black O-rings. I'll be changing those out, putting new ones in it. So I'm taking both lines loose, take them out, and get them over a bucket and flush them with some fluid I got for flushing kit. And flush them in reverse flow of what they normally are. I'll see what kind of trash comes out of them. Hoping they're not too bad, but we'll find out. Well, here's my little flushing apparatus I got, called Four Uncles. Odd name, but it should work good. Got this on Amazon, about 34 bucks, I think. Just hook your air hose to it. According to what I've read, you want to let this set your air compressor at 40 psi, and that's what you want to flow the flush material through at. And go reverse direction. I'm gonna see what kind of crud it gets out of it. I don't know. Hope I bought enough. I don't know. I got to do the evaporator, the condenser, and all the lines. So we'll see how nasty it is. I got me a nice clean new bucket so I can count or check for how much metal comes out. All right, this might be tricky. I'm gonna try to show this with one hand. So I've got my little flush kit hooked up. I'm gonna turn on the air pressure. I'm going to hook this up and you'll see the stuff blow out. I'm going down into this bucket. Alright, let's see how this works. Turn on some pressure. Alright. Because I'm doing this reverse from normal flow. Now that one got some more crud out of it, quite a bit more. So now it says it's very important to get all the residue out. So to flush it, you want to hook your air line to it and run it for 30 minutes. Like I think 80 psi is what it wants. So I'm gonna hook it up, show you. All right, so the air line's hooked up, and they want that to go for 30 minutes. So it completely dries it out. Gets it all dried out. Alright, so I got that process done. Let the air compressor run for 30 minutes. And there's right, because even after about 20 minutes, it was still spitting out that flush liquid. It was still bubbling a little bit. You could see droplets come through, but after about 30 minutes it finally stopped and nothing but clean dry air was coming out of it. So I've done the evaporator. Now to focus on the condenser. This may help you out. The hose I'm using here is 5/8 by 3/4 clear, and it fits right over the suction lines. It makes a nice tight seal, just same like I put over on this one. And so now I'm going to hook up my little flush doodad again and now do the condenser and see how much crud comes out of it. Alright, it's going to come out. Okay, you can see I got some black crud out of that, and so I think, but tomorrow I've only bought 1 quart that flush and clean, so I might buy another quart tomorrow and do this again just to see what the difference is. Hopefully I won't be able to get all that crud black coming out of it. And just like I did the other one, so I've got this line hooked up here. And I just hooked it up to my air hose, and I'll let that run for a while and dry it out real good. And this is just a reminder, if you're going to do this job, you better replace this hose because it is in a booger of a spot. Even with the compressor out of the way, it's still going to be tight. You got that look where that hose clamp is to get to that. So yeah, if you have to change this hose, that would really be no fun whatsoever. To have to take an hour just to get the compressor loose, just to get that hose. So I'm gonna, and it shows to be obsolete. There are some reproductions, but I'm gonna see if I can't find something pre-molded I can make work in its place, because I'd like to get this back together kind of quick. And another tip, this idler bearing was making a little bit of racket. So while I've got it apart, I'm going to, there's no need to buy a whole pulley. You just press that bearing out. It's a common bearing you find anywhere. So I'm going to put me a socket in there, press it out in the vise, press in a new bearing, and I'll have that fixed. Alright, just to show you how easy it is, get the right size socket on there, put it in your vise, and just do that. Just press it right out. Ta-da! Easy peasy. I'll just clean it up, get the numbers off of it. Yes, he's dry. Good thing I was replacing it. Also, while I had it apart here and everything's freewheeling, I've checked the water pump bearing's good, alternator's good, all that. Well, that thing is really dry. So it wouldn't last much longer. But we'll put her in new and have that done. Okay, got some little information and tips for you now. First of all, heater hose. This heater hose that runs right here under the compressor, a real booger to get to. If you take your compressor off, you better change it, because I'm sure that was the original hose that I removed. And I got to looking for it. It's an obsolete item from General Motors. There are some aftermarket ones out there, but they're like 30 bucks. And I'm kind of in a hurry, so I went 2 or 3 different auto places today. I finally landed at O'Reilly's. They had a huge selection, and they let me go back here and look around. And I found this number here, 19705. That hose will work just fine. It's got the dip to it. Let me see if I got the original hose. Okay, so here's the original factory hose. It's got that dip to make room for the compressor. So I found this hose. Again, there's the number. Jot that down, 19705. If you ever need that hose, you can get it probably really easy, and it will work awesome. Just put it right in there and put a couple clamps on there, and I'm going to reposition that clamp, because before, when I took this apart, they had the screw, you had to access it straight down. So I'm going to fix it so you access it from the front. That'd make it a whole lot easier. But you know, I guess that would be, as a tip, if you get into this job, say for instance you need to change this heater hose and the compressor is still installed, and the hose clamp is positioned where you can't get to the screw head. If you could you could probably get a Dremel tool in here and slice the clamp. If you slice the clamp, then you could get the hose off, get your new hose in there, and reposition the clamp in a position where you can get a screwdriver into it, instead of having to I had to access it like this to get the clamp loose. So, alright, got that. I'm also going to talk about the oil residue. I got to looking at all this oil, so how it's built up on the hose down here. It's a lot built up. You know, there's not, the harmonic balancer is all dry, main crank seal is dry, water pump, all that. So I got to thinking the only source must have been all this oil is coming out of the compressor. Of course, this is from 1985. I'm sure it's plumb wore out. But look at all the crud inside here. So my assumption is, you know, we had the seal failed, leaked out the oil, and you know, this unit doesn't have a crankcase in it, so I guess the oil amount is pretty critical. And so once it got low on oil, you got to keep that in mind. If you're low on refrigerant, then that means you're most likely low on oil also. And I was reading where something can happen quite a bit people will have their air conditioners that starts not performing well, not putting out well, and it's the end of the season. You say, oh, don't worry about it. I know I'm low on Freon. I'll wait till spring to get it fixed. Well, during the winter, when you put on defrost, you're still running your air conditioner. So now your compressor is still running, and you're low on Freon. If you're low on Freon, then you're low on oil, and that contributes to your compressor failing. So if you're not cooling, you need to jump on it and see why. And look carefully around for any oil leaks. Remember, I had a little bit of oil leak here, O-ring, checking around the compressor. Maybe if you catch it early, maybe you can save yourself some money. Alrighty, and I think next step, I'm going to flush this stuff one more time. I want to make sure I got a good flush on the evaporator and the condenser. Okay, well, from last night's flushing, there's what I have. Just a little bit of crud and a few little sparklies. And I poured this out and ran it through a coffee filter, and just to see what I could get out of it. I don't know what that's. I think maybe that's rubber hose or something. It's just kind of black. Don't know what that is, but there's a little bit of speckles there. There's something sticking to that magnet, so we got some metal material. But I don't think it's excessive. Don't know, because I've never done this before, so I don't know what's considered normal since 1985, or I guess it's considered since 1985. It's probably not that bad. But I'm gonna flush it one more time and see how it looks then. Okay, a tip as you go to put this compressor in, start your bottom bolt first. You know, the one that's got that flat side to it. If I can get it, you can see it. There she is. Get that one started first. Turn my phone back around. And then that'll help you line up this back bolt. And because you're going to have to, your back bolt's going to have to be started back here past the valve cover. And then wiggle this bracket, wiggle around. You'll eventually get it started without too much trouble. Of course, remember those two nuts down here. You have to keep those off, so you give the bracket some time or some space to wiggle around. So I'm going to finish bolting this up, and we'll be one step closer to putting things back together. Well, it's time to replace some O-rings, and I got me a whole set here at Harbor Freight, fairly cheap. Forget what they were, but anyway. And also, don't forget you got O-rings on your switches. So there's the old ones there. Taking them off. So we're gonna get all the O-rings replaced on those. And there's also, of course, there's Schrader valves in here, but they're normally open position, so I'm not going to bother with changing those anyway. I will change it's actually the accumulator's got new Schrader valves. I don't know if I'll be I may be putting new Schrader valves somewhere as I get along in the system here. I got to put new O-rings on this here. Let's see, that's got one of the old black ones on it. So I'll get all these changed out, start mounting the lines, and we'll hopefully be ready for Freon for long. Oh, here's something I want to point out to you. Nylog Blue. Really good stuff for sealing O-rings, threads, safe for all HVAC stuff and different types of Freon. Just put a few drops on there on your threads and on the O-ring. I mean, for sealing Schrader valves, for sealing compression fittings. It's really good stuff. Just look that up on YouTube. You'll see all kinds of videos about it. You'll see a lot of HVAC technicians using this stuff so that way they can get everything sealed and keep away from the leaks. Okay, one step closer. I noticed this, and I guess this is probably a good sign, if you can hear it or not. Let's see here. Take this loose. Yeah. I guess that tells me that my compressor has a very good seal on it. And they warn you not to take this off until you get ready to bolt everything up, because you don't want to have it open to the atmosphere for long, where it'll suck the moisture out of the air. One thing I wanted to mention, about to get my hoses hooked up. In my kit, I came up with all the O-rings except for these two. This large one on the suction line. Both ends they're the same size. I had to go to I checked Advance, AutoZone, no one had it. I had to go to the local air conditioning shop to get that particular O-ring. Even that big old set of O-rings I got over here, none of them had that particular size. So that's a little hiccup I ran into this evening. But now I got all my O-rings, and I'll finish bolting up all my lines, and hopefully can start pulling the vacuum and check for leaks. Okay, important tip. I was told by Four Seasons, the compressor manufacturer, when you install these seals, put them in dry. They said lubricate the O-rings. These are fine to put oil on them. But he said they want you to put them in dry. They've had cases, they told me, that if you lubricate them, they could possibly leak. So, don't quite understand it, but I'm doing what they say. Okay, so in case you're wondering about the Ford blue orifice tube, there's the part number that you use. And this is, I believe, 67 thousandths, that little brass tube in the middle. Where the original one, this dirty old thing here, I think it was like 73 thousandths or something. So that little smaller orifice gives us a little bit higher pressures to give us better cooling, because the 134, it operates at different pressures, different temperatures than what the R-12 does. So I guess we're just trying to trick the system a little bit so it performs better. Because I don't understand all of it exactly, but I'm learning. So let me get this put in there. Okay, so I put me some PAG oil on that, and we just drop it right down in that little hole right there. You want to make sure you put it in the right way. So I'm going to have to get me two hands. There it goes. I'll get me a needle nose and push it on down and get that in place. One step closer. Okay, so all the hoses are good and tight. All new O-rings in place. So now it's time to put on these adapters, because we're not dealing with R-12 no more. We're doing 134, and the connectors won't fit for my gauges. So that's what we'll do next. We got, just drop my cap. Get up here. There we go. Just thread that on there. And this goes on the high side. Hold my mouth right. There she goes. Alright, so I'll finish tightening those up, and we'll be able to put the gauges up here shortly. Okay, it's time for the oil. For the book, you can see right here, 87 through 85, we want, that's 52 ounces of R-12. Well, that'll be different for the 134, but for the oil, it's 7 ounces. But not mineral oil, we want PAG 150. I called Four Seasons to confirm that. So I've already put 3 ounces in there, and I'll just put the 4th one in. So that'll have all the oil done, because the compressor already has 3 ounces in it. So I only have to add 4 ounces to the system. And he said just put it all in the dryer. No need to put it in the condenser and the evaporator. So I got that down, bolt that up, and be ready for vacuum. Okay, it's vacuum time. Gauges are hooked up. You know, you can get these gauges at Harbor Freight pretty reasonable. You want to tempt the stuff yourself. Even at the vacuum to Harbor Freight, and has done me a good job on several different jobs I've done. So I'm going to let that run for a while, and then I'll shut it off and make sure everything holds. And then we'll see about putting in some Freon. So while that vacuum is pulling down the system, I got curious. I said, well, what's inside a dryer anyway, or accumulator? So I took my hacksaw and sliced it in half, and here's what it looks like. I'll get the thing out here. There it is. 2 big bags of desiccant, I believe that's what that's called. It absorbs the moisture. It's oily too, a little oil in it. It's a cool thing. Huh. It goes like that. And then there's more parts in there that don't want to come out. Oh, there she goes. That's pretty interesting. Now I know. So I guess the suction comes in here, goes down through the bag, goes back up the other tube, Pretty neat stuff, pretty neat. Well, now you know if you ever was curious of what's inside of one of these things. Okay, so it's time to press in my new bearing. So just in case you get into this little project and your bearing, idler bearing is noisy, don't sound good, because it was about to go out. It was getting really bad. I picked up 2 of these on Amazon. There's a number you need, 6203RS. And I got 2 for, I can't focus, there you go, $8.39 or something like that, delivered. So I got a spare, put in a glove box for some other time. So, but I was going to point out, with bearings, getting them out doesn't really matter how you get them out, but when you go to put them in, you want to be very careful, is press it in, and do whatever you do not beat or press on this inner race. I'll give you an example. Like you may think, okay, I'll turn the socket like, if you turn the socket like this, you can see it rotates really easy. It's actually rotating on that inner race. The inner race is spinning. So if I was to put that in a vise and press on it, I'd actually be applying pressure to this inner race, putting little flat spots on the balls, causing damage. You know, so I'm going to turn it over and just be pressing on the outer side of the bearing. So I'm going to get this in position, and I'll show you how it's done. Alright, she's in position. You see the new bearing. There's my socket. Put a big socket on the back side so I didn't cause any damage to this thin rail here. And so I just get it in here and just use the vise. It's hard to do with one hand. Anyway, you get the idea. You see how it's pressing it in there? Just press it in until it bottoms out, and that's all you got to do, instead of beating and banging on it with a hammer, causing more damage. So there's the finished product. Brand new bearing, pressed in. You can see it's pressed in all the way. Nice and smooth now, quiet. I don't have to worry about that thing locking up on me down the road and smoking the belt. So I'll just get this on this spring-loaded idler arm and put all that back together. Well, good news. It's the next day. I pulled a vacuum on it last night and let it sit here all night long, and it's still holding, so that means everything's good, no leaks. So, and I've got my Freon R134a ready to go in. One thing I cannot pin down is the amount to put in here. I'm going to look at my notes, because according to this, the R-12 amount was 7 ounce. And I've been going through my notes and looking online, talking to different people, different places, and I've got suggestions anywhere from 34 ounce all the way up to 46 ounces. So I guess I'm going to just maybe start out with 36, check the pressures, temperatures, and I can always keep adding a little bit more till it gets right. So I'm going to turn on this vacuum pump again, just run it for a little bit more, and to make sure I get a good vacuum, and then I'll add that in and we'll see if we have some cold air this way. Shut my valves off here, and then I'm hook up the Freon and we'll get it drawn into the system, and we'll see what happens. So another tip, if you happen to buy a can of 134 like this, you're going to need an adapter like this right here. I got this off of one of those can piercing kits, because your gauge will not screw directly on there. I don't know why they're going to make everything so difficult, but anyway, you have to have an adapter first, and then you can put the gauge on there and you'll be good to go. Okay, got it zeroed out. Purge the line. Alright, air's out, and let's start putting some in. So we'll do this, and then we'll watch it, get 36 ounces in there. It's going in slowly, but going. Alright, can you see that? It's about 43 degrees. Looking good. But also, to confirm, we are 91 degree day. 91 degrees and 43 degree air coming out. I like it. Like it very much. Remember, you want to cycle the clutch, you got to burnish the clutch in. So I noticed every time I'd first turn it on, you'd hear it slipping. But I'd turn it on and off, on and off. I've done this now about 10 times. Turn it off, back on. They say do that at least 10 or 12 times, and that way it burnishes the clutch. And I'm going to double check the air gap on it too. See, we're cruising down the road, 55 miles an hour. Sun coming through the window. Nice warm day. I think it's 85 degrees out there. And we're sitting here 40 degrees. And it feels great. FYI, set at a stoplight, picks up a little bit, 43, it's 45, so the brakes, but still nice and comfortable. This off, I was wanting to mention this to you. This is supposed to have a diode in here. Now, if anybody's monkeyed with these wires, if it's not original, they may have cut it out. That diode is there to help protect the ECM. I guess when these electromagnetic clutches engage, it's a high current event, and that can cause fluctuations and problems with the computer system. So if you happen to see yours and someone's been chopping on it and got rid of the diode, you might want to check that out and maybe replace it. I think I read on a forum where a fellow replaced 2 or 3 computers on his car before he found out this was the culprit, because it was causing those spikes of current in there. So I think it's about to wrap things up. I've got a few more things I want to point out though. Okay, I don't know if you stuck out through the video this whole thing, but it's been kind of long, lengthy. But I'm wrapping it up now. It's been a week now since I did this project. It's been running great. We drive it every day, getting 41, 42 degree air as we go down the road. If we sit at a stoplight, you know, if it's 88 degrees, it may see 50 degrees sitting there idling, but it's performing great. So can't complain. Everything's good. Everything's dry. No leaks. Was going to talk about components in case you want to know what's what when it comes to switches. This is your low pressure switch. Remember, I adjusted it down to come on about 22.5. Some people say 21 psi. So I guess that's during colder weather. That'll turn the compressor off before you have any icing on the evaporator. Of course, remember the orifice tube is right here. Okay, we got these 2 switches on the high pressure line. So this switch here, that controls your fan. So that kicks the radiator fan on, or the condenser fan. This is the high pressure cutoff switch. So if the pressure gets too high, it'll turn the compressor off. So that's what those switches do, if you want to know. So anyway, of course, you got your low side, high side, and all that stuff. There's that new hose I put on. Remember, I think through OEM is obsolete now, but I've got that Gates hose. Let me get you some part numbers too. Let me gather you up some part numbers. Okay, part numbers. So there's that hose. If you need that heater hose that goes underneath the compressor, you can use the Gates hose, and it's only $9 instead of paying $30 for an aftermarket something else I seen online, but I didn't have time to wait for it. This is the compressor I used, Four Seasons 48238 that I used, but I ended up buying it through Advance. So I got it through Advance because I got a better warranty. Through Advance I got like a lifetime warranty with it, as long as you buy the other components, the orifice tube and the accumulator. And you can see my part numbers I got there. The accumulator, there's the orifice tube. Now that's the Ford orifice tube, that T38621. That's a 67 thousandths, where the factory was 73 thousandths, because we need to go a little bit smaller because we're not using R-12 anymore, so in order to get the pressures right. And of course there's the accumulator, that AC valve core kit to switch it over the adapters from R-12 over to 134. And what else? There's my PAG oil. Got that PAG oil, 150. Let me see here. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, quantities. I end up using 45 ounces of 134a. End up using 7 ounces of 150 PAG oil. What's my other note here? Don't forget to burnish the clutch. When you flip the clutch on and off kind of quickly, at least 10 or 12 times to get the clutch surfaces to bed in so that it's not slipping. Clutch gap between 15 and 25 thousandths. Total job, with compression and everything, was about $325. I was going to mention also, like with Advance, I've noticed if you have an account, put your email and stuff in there, throw your parts in the shopping cart, just let it sit there, and sometime later, in 12, 24 hours, you'll get an email giving you a 20-25% discount. So you can take advantage of that too. So hopefully that'll get you going. I've learned quite a bit during this process. Hope you've learned a few things too. If you can give me any other tips, or if you think anything I messed up, just leave me a note down there at the bottom, and maybe we can create a dialogue. And because I know that I couldn't find any other videos doing this process, so that's why I took the time to piece this together. So anyways, thanks for watching, and have a great day.